All right, so we're live. We're actually live. So, hello everyone. I think we should say hello, Christine.
Hey, hey, how's everyone
Hello
doing?
everyone. Yeah, because I can see that Michael and Isam are typing, "Hey guys, where are you?" Stuff like that. So, hello everyone. Hello everyone watching. Thank you so much for for joining us on this live podcast on a very important topic, which I really wanted to bring on screen with one of the most active people, in the PMO field, in particular, even though Christine is by nature a project manager. Okay, I'll let her introduce herself in a moment. But still, I could see her talk a lot about PMO, and I was saying myself, since we started something about PMO, free training with 600 people who attended back in December, I really wanted to continue the momentum, the discussion, and bring in an expert because this topic is about, it's around enterprise PMO, but it's gonna focus in particular on how to bridge the gap between what the books say, Christine, what the theory says, all right, and how is it in practice? Because you have an impressive CV. I think over 2 decades of project management, right, Christine?
Yes, don't age me too much, but yes, that is
I don't.
correct.
No, no. I'll let you really introduce yourself to the audience before we jump, into our hot topic for today.
Awesome. Well, hey everyone, I am Christine Duvall. I'm coming to you live from Tampa, Florida, and really excited to be here. Yes, I have over 2 decades of project management experience, also process improvement experience. And I've also taught for over 2 decades as well. So I'll let you figure out which came first. And I've had the privilege of leading multiple PMOs, both on the IT side and over the last 11 years. I've been in healthcare, led 2 EPMOs, and one of which won PMI's PMO of the Year in 2021. And then the PMO North American PMO of the Year in 24. So super excited. I'm excited to kick
The
this off.
same, the same one won both awards.
So different because what 24 was when PMI had already bought out PMOGA. And so it was a different awards where you sort of go head to head in these knockout rounds.
I mean, the same PMO, the same PMO, the
Oh, the
same.
same. Yes. Yes.
Wow. Wow. So, what was that PMO about, Christine?
Yeah. So I led an enterprise project management office and really came in, which I talked to so many PMO leaders. It's a very similar conversation where you're coming into a PMO where the organization has had a PMO in the past. They may have dissolved it, started it back up again. So I came in to start this enterprise project management team that was not hitting benchmark standards. I was told that this team was really functioning as glorified admins. That was a direct quote that was said to me. So to take this team and really then elevate it to winning a global award, which I never thought was possible, but it was a journey. And that's what I talk about, even with my PMO leaders, even on LinkedIn, is it's never a linear path. And it's never a sprint. You're in it for the long haul and the long game. And a lot of it really comes down to how you're talking about your value and your proposition that you're giving back to the organization, because we have to create value. And communication is so key for us.
Mm-hmm. So, mentioning that, winning an award doesn't come from nothing, doesn't simply mean that you and your team managed to find a way how to bring the PMO frameworks, whatever framework you guys were following, okay, from the paper sheets, okay, from how they're written on the papers, and put them, in reality in the organization where you worked, okay, regardless of the politics, the limited capacity, the unclear decision rights, if you ever had limited decision rights. So you probably figured out a way, you found a way how to put that into, an efficient and effective practice.
Yeah. Well, back when I started leading EPMOs, there was no certification. And so I mean, this was all my design. And really, at the time, I took a Gartner assessment on PMOs, and really that gave me an understanding. I needed objective data to really understand. And I talk about this as a PMO, we have to have the data. And so for me, that data, along with the conversations I was having with key leaders and sponsors, it gave me an understanding. But then it's also sort of a 360, because you have to also talk to your team. And so your team is also going to give you insights. And so for me, it was really taking what I was hearing, what was the data telling me, and then really creating a plan, right? In true PM fashion, creating a plan, what I was going to tackle over the next 90 days. And then I just kind of kept moving the needle. And, in less than 3 years, and that's where we won during COVID. But, I don't feel like as a PMO, and for me, we all need to create value, whether you're an EPMO, a TMO, an IT PMO, whatever flavor of PMO, you have to create value. And that's going to be different for every organization, but you don't ever fully arrive, right? You can celebrate the wins, but you have to continue to, I call it, kind of tinker and lean out your operations and really meet your customers where they are. So you're continuing to demonstrate your value.
So, if someone would come to you and ask you, hey, Christine, as an expert, in what type of organizations do we need to have a PMO? How would you answer that simply?
Oh, I don't know that is a simple answer. I think it really depends. It depends on the organization, because I've talked to PMO leaders that they had 1,000 FTEs in the organization, and they were very mature. And so, I've even worked in founder-driven organizations where I had a small PMO. I didn't need to process engineer it to death, right? We needed to meet the organization where it was. And so it could be a lighter touch. But I've also seen large organizations not have a PMO, or they have them in more vertical areas, or they're decentralized, or they're product driven, right? There's so many different flavors of PMOs that I think it really kind of speaks to, do you have executive buy-in and cover? Even if you're in a vertical, if you're in IT, you still need to have folks that at least have a general understanding what a PMO does, because you're going to need that ground cover as you're getting started, right? And you have to have that, because you need to buy some time, because you're not going to be able to demonstrate value right out of the gate.
Right. So, for example, Christine, now you won a couple of awards. And yourself, I think I saw in your profile, you're PMP certified, you're PGMP certified, right? You're PFMP certified, if I'm not mistaken. Well, that tells a lot, to be honest, okay? Because those certifications don't come just from theory. They come from real practice, especially the advanced ones like PGMP, PFMP. You can't get those certifications. And you got them like not long ago, like a couple of years ago, like 2024, if I'm not mistaken, right? You wouldn't have been able to get those certifications if you were not really a real practitioner. Now, as a real practitioner, you have implemented PMOs in a couple of organizations before. Now, we notice in our profession that PMOs sometimes don't succeed because companies want to copy the same model from a previous company where the PMO really worked, it was efficient, it delivered the results, it was expected to deliver. Project management was functioning well, let's say, whatever project management they're applying, but then they wanted to copy that model, but it failed in their organization. Did you witness that? And what would be your recommendation to avoid that mistake or that failure, if I would say, say it differently?
Yeah. I've seen this across industries, across countries, across different languages. We all run into very similar things. We all have to demonstrate value. And what may have worked at a previous organization may not work at this new organization. You're different. It's like when you have kids, they're not all the same, and you're gonna have different executives. And I like, and yes, I do have a lot of certifications, and this will be my next one that I will be setting for. And when I went to the America's PMO master class last year in San Diego, we had a really nice conversation with, we are here. Obviously, we're here as a service to the organization, but we're here to solve a pain for the organization, right? We have the medicine. We're here to help them. But everybody's pain, you may not have the same pain in every organization. Yes, there are still some fundamental things that obviously we need to do to make sure that we're preserving sort of our sanity throughout standing up PMOs and then sustaining them. But I kind of go back to that 360. What I used in my previous healthcare org wasn't lockstep in with what I created in my last EPMO. So, I mean, you can take the frameworks and then you need to modify and mold them, but you don't really know until you get out, until you talk to people, until you do an assessment to see where some of your opportunities and gaps are, because then that's going to help drive what you need to do and potentially the order of what you need to do it, because you can't do everything all at once.
Right. You said that PMOs are basically service providers. You said we are providing services. Mm-hmm. Now, many people don't know this, by the way, Christine. So listen, let's get a little bit out of the American context. I've started my career at IBM, an American company. So we lived up to the American context, whether it's, we follow the books, the certifications, PMI, PMP, all of that we followed at IBM, exactly what the book says. But however, when I was traveling around the world, I figured out that actually more than 90% of the organizations don't follow the book, whatever that book is, all right? Now, you and I agree that books bring confirmed or even tested practices, and then those practices are put into the books so we can read them and try to apply them. However, many organizations don't know what it means to be a service provider or as a PMO, to be a service provider. So if I would not ask you directly about being a service provider, but one step back, right? I take one step back and ask you this. Christine, if you were to join a company right now, an organization, I don't know the size, it could be 500 FTEs, 1,000, 10,000, 100,000, or just 100 FTEs, and you were to deploy a PMO, what would be your first steps in doing that? So people at least can learn from such a great practitioner like yourself and person full of experience.
Yeah, I would do exactly what I just mentioned. I would, let's say that I did not have access to, let's say, like a Gartner assessment or some other type of benchmarking assessment, right? That's just a data point. I would have direct conversations with key leadership, with your team. If you have a team, you may not even have a team. You may be coming in completely with a blank slate. But there's a reason that PMO was approved and funded, right? Somebody believed in it. What was the why? You have to tap into whatever the why is. Is it solving a pain? Are they forward thinking? What is it? And really have honest conversations, because I guarantee you're going to find people that they're going to have a bag. Maybe they ran into a PMO before. Maybe they didn't have good experiences. Talk to them. You have to unpack that, because those perceptions that they're carrying could inevitably impact your PMO being stood up. And I know people are probably going to think, well, that's their baggage. That's not my problem. But it goes back to the human side of change management. For me, I want to know what is being said about my team. And so when I was told, and if I was told this in the future, actually my post tomorrow, I'm talking about this, but I feel very strongly that as a profession, we have some accountability. And so it is our duty to make sure that we are working top of license. And yes, that is a healthcare term with nurses. But if you think about all of our certifications, we have to elevate up. And so we have an accountability to be helping to show these organizations what we're capable of. Because if not, then we get boxed into these admin type functions that we don't want to be in. And so starting it off on the right foot, on understanding the organization's why, what are the pain points, what are we trying to solve, then you can then create your plan from there.
So if I would ask you this, if you could name 5 easy, simple steps on how a PMO leader would set up a PMO or would start a PMO in 5 easy steps. Any what would come from the top of your head, for 5 easy steps
Well,
to start?
yeah, 5 easy steps. I would definitely talk to all the folks that I just mentioned. Get right, understand what you're working with. Talk to your team. Have honest conversations. What do they feel? What do they perceive about the team? They're going to probably carry a bag too if there has been an existing PMO. I would also do a skill assessment on the team, because your team, your PMs, what are you working with? Because you need to reinvest and skill them up. You can't be viewed as a strategic partner with a team that is not able to understand a pro forma, understand how to speak in terms that executives understand. And so that is something that is not taught in the textbooks. I would then create a charter, right? You don't need to boil the ocean with it, but you need something, and you need to get buy-in on it. And then for me, throughout all of those conversations, whatever sort of that fifth thing is, that is the burning platform, that's what I would focus on. Maybe it's a PPM tool, maybe it's governance, maybe it's intake. Maybe they're like, you need to get rid of Bob over here because Bob is causing issues and we don't want him on the team, right? You never know what it's going to be. But I wouldn't be so boxed in on creating all of the deliverables that the PMO needs, because remember, you're a service and you have to create value, and that value isn't what we think it is. It's really on what our customers perceive it to be.
Right. Um, Now, what does it what does it require for a PMO to function well in an organization in relation to the management or the leadership of the organization, especially in relation to governance? Sometimes, PMOs struggle to, deliver the services and the value they're expected to deliver simply because the leadership does not perceive or does not probably, see the value of the PMO, or, they're blocked at certain decision making level, or maybe the governance is not, supportive, or, is not flexible enough, etc. So, from your experience, what could block a PMO from functioning well in an organization?
Well, if you're not creating value, and if you're being what I call order takers, and you're not being thought partners, you're going to continue to get blocked. And this is where, for me, we have to take accountability. And so that's where you have to skill up the team. And for me, I'm going to probably go against maybe some textbooks or some, other leaders in this space. For me, I don't have to have the PMO chairing governance. You need to have a seat at the table, but you have to earn the seat. You have to earn the seat. It's not given. And I think understanding that as professionals, both as PMs, everybody's watching you. I would always tell my teams, because, right, I had strategic PMs, and I would always say, you're in a fishbowl. And I think this strongly goes to all PMs. And so even if you're not in a ePMO, it's the same concept. You're in a fishbowl. So if you think about a fishbowl and the fish is swimming around, you can see all the way around. People are
Right.
watching you. And if you just come and you're like, I'm going to take my meeting minutes, now that AI can do that, maybe not even you're doing that. And I'm going to send out the minutes in a couple of days. And I'm just going to wait to the next meeting, and then we'll follow up on those action items. And right, we need to remember we're an expense to the organization. So if that's how you're showing up, you're going to continue to get blocked, and you're probably will, I know it sounds doom and gloom, but you probably will eventually get dissolved because, right, they're not going to want to pay $2.5 million US dollars for a service to the organization where they're not seeing the return on the value.
Right. We'll come to talk about value because that's one of the most important topics and points in relation to anything we do, actually, not just PMO. But I have, I received a fundamental question, which is, it's so basic, but it's worth answering. What's the difference? What's the difference between a PMO and a PM, project manager? Are they the same? Are they different? Is the PMO the head of a PM? Is it the other way around? Is the PMO a support to the PM? People want to know this.
This is a good question. I had this same topic. I'm going to squirrel for a second, then I'm going to come back. This is what I always tell my students. I'm like, we're going to follow this journey here.
Right.
In the US, I mean, typically you're going to have a PMO, and that's where the PMs are going to live.
Right.
I chair PMI's Healthcare Collective. We actually just released some content if folks are interested in looking at it, but we were meeting, recording our content, and one of our members that are part of our Healthcare Collective is from Australia. And I said, I have heard that there are functions that there is basically PMs that are in sort of the separate function that's not part of the PMO. And the PMO just is like governance and templates. And he was like, yes, in Australia, that's a very real thing. Their PMs are separate than their PMO. And so it's fascinating because I learned something new. And so for me, if I'm thinking about what I'm used to seeing and the PMOs that I've led and the PMOs that I've been in when I was, consulting and when I was a PM, typically the PMs are living underneath the umbrella of the PMO. And for me, who makes a good PMO leader is the one that's been in the trenches, right? You've been there, you have the battle wounds, the good, the bad, the ugly of what it takes to PM. But however, just because you were a great PM doesn't mean you're going to be a great PMO leader. It's a different mindset and a skill set when you go to make that transition as well, because now you're not just, cutting through the ambiguity and being a great PM. You have to train and skill up your PMs along with deal with all the customers around the organization.
You're right. Actually, this is the PMO I learned. The first job I ever had in project management was being a PMO support. So I was, the support of PMO, in the basic sense of or basic explanation of PMO. So I was being a support of project managers, providing, them with templates, organizing training, making sure they understand the methodology, the approach. Sometimes, we provide reports, etc. And then I had my colleagues who was, more of a controlling PMO, checking compliance, following, making sure that the project manager's documentation is up to date, stored in the repository of the project, etc. And then we had directive PMO. Directive PMO who were directly assigning the project managers to the project, etc. That was the basic way how we defined PMOs. I'm talking about like 20 years ago almost, okay? Now, still, even in the PMP exam, we're still teaching this level of PMO, even though with the PMBOK 8, it's a little more now, let's say, broader. It's a little like, broader because we start, introducing PMO as a value provider, as part of the entire system for value delivery. PMO is somewhere there, not just programs, projects, and portfolios, but actually even, this is all governed or supervised by a PMO. Now, you said the PMO's role or the project manager needs to learn different set of skills in order to get up to a PMO level, regardless of the level of authority the PMO has got. What are the main skills a project manager needs to have if they want to, let's say, move one level up maybe, or become a PMO, at least on a directive PMO or a PMO with more power, more oversight? What are the key skills? At least 3 skills, if you may mention, Christine.
3 skills. Well, you have to be able to live in the gray. And you're like, all of her answers are very obscure and but this is a real thing. There is no clear linear path when you're a PMO leader. You, every day is different. So you need to be good at living in the gray. You need to be good at influencing with relationship building.
Right.
You're kind of selling a lot of stuff a lot of the time, especially when you're building out a PMO, because here again, organizations don't know what you're capable of until you're actually able to do it. And you need to be good at communicating. And because when you're going out and you're meeting with all the executives on a regular basis, I call them marbles. You're putting marbles in your jar. By building that rapport with them, eventually there's going to come a time where you're going to have to borrow one of those marbles. A project gets crazy, you tick somebody off, the team ticks, whatever, right? And so those to me are some of the key skills. And I think you need to find a tribe. We go through a lot as PMO leaders. That's why I always say we have to stick together. It's a lot of us are swimming in these broken systems. And so that's probably 4, but we can get rid of the last one if need be.
No. That's good. Thanks for sharing that. Um, you mentioned earlier, and you probably you have the book by your side. The PMO has got to deliver value.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't know how far you went into the book, the PMO standard by from PMI, but now PMO's role and scope of activities and scope of influence as well has been redefined, or I don't know if it was enhanced, maybe more than redefined. So a PMO now is supposed to deliver value to its customers. That's what the book says. That's what we will talk about certifications in a while. Okay. So what kind of services the PMO delivers, and how can the PMO be sure that there is value in those services? It's two questions in one question.
Yeah.
What kind of services and how to know that there is value in that service?
Well, I think I'm going to flip them. No matter what service you have, the value comes from the feedback that you're receiving from your customers. And and that's, you're not going to know until you deliver it.
Right.
And that's where it's, because I'm very process oriented as well, make adjustments, fail fast, right? And and you have to take that into account depending upon the organization. I've worked in very risk averse companies, but still I can still tinker with my processes and my services that I provide. And so I think the big ones are, you need to be able to help your customers on delivery. But it's not, I think there's this misconception that even with executives, you have a PM and all we do is deliver 40 hours a week. And that's not true. And so dialing that back on what that means. And here again, we have to have data, you have to have your capacity numbers to do that. But we have to be able to deliver. You can do different type of services for your organizations. You can be an advisor. I like to always call it, you're going to phone a friend. Hey, I have a question about this. And so you could lightly advise the organization. They're running the project, you're just advising. And I know the book talks very similar language to that. You could do phase level of support where you're coming in, you're helping them through planning, through baselining, assuming you're doing predictive waterfall. And then you can then transition it over to a project leader within the operations area. And so then you can do full delivery. But I think another thing that's interesting is, even when you think about benefits realization, I feel very strongly that when we're delivering these projects, whether through rolling wave or you have a big bang, track those. The PMO should track those KPIs. You can be the keeper of that. You can send and distribute the reports. And then if those KPIs, once they've gone live, if they're not hitting their targets, this is something different. As a PMO, you should be able to go back in, help do some investigative analysis to say, okay, I'm seeing some trends over these last 3 months. Bring it back to the sponsor, right? You're showing up as a thought partner to them and giving them something to react to. So I think that's another service. I am also big. This is huge for me, also because I've taught for so long. And I don't hear again, even when I was in IT, I would give back to the organization by providing project management training. And I think that's big. And I think twofold. One, it helps raise the level of project management maturity across the organization. I think it also then when you get your PMO involved, they're gonna grumble. But when you come in and say, hey, I want you to give back to the organization by teaching project management, it's gonna organically, they're going to learn project management in a whole other way than what they've been trained, because you have to teach it for people that don't understand it. And so it makes them better PMs as well. I also feel like as a service, we need to be the stewards of the data. Now, I'm not saying you need to be a data quality area, nothing like that, but you as a PMO have a purview into things no other area does. But that also means that you have to be solid in your data, in your effort reporting. If you need to be tracking all of your actuals for resource management, because ultimately when you can come back to your executives and say, okay, your portfolio value is X, but the investment into that was, 1 million and you got back 2.3 million. And so they start to see you as, hey, you're being a strategic advisor versus let me just tell you how many projects I executed this year. Because they don't care about that.
So, do you think sometimes PMOs get involved into the projects, by the side of the project manager?
Meaning like a PMO leader gets.
I don't know, whatever the role would be, or the kind of support would be, or the kind of involvement would be, but yeah, because I'm only bringing people's questions on the screen, I'm reading them aloud. So people sometimes ask, does the PMO have to get involved in the project sometimes or not, or is it strictly the project manager managing the project, PMO just providing service and support?
So a couple of things, and I'll take a couple of stabs at this because I've seen where some folks will say PMO and they're meaning the PMO leader. And so
Yeah.
I'm gonna do twofold here. So I think, just my opinion, I think as a PMO leader, we should not be executing on projects
Right.
unless you've inherited something when you're, let's say, promoting, because it's too difficult. It's too difficult to meet the needs of the organization along with skilling up your team and everything that you have to juggle on a daily basis. No, you should really try to sunset those projects and get them off of your plate. It's just too difficult. I know leaders though that will be functional and they will manage projects as well. I think it's just more difficult. Now, I think depending upon the organization, what's interesting is I don't feel like the PMO needs to be like, let me beat you with a stick if you have projects that are out in the universe. Because for me, what I would do, if you're teaching project management, I want to skill them up. I want operations to be able to run light projects, not big strategic projects, not projects that flex on IT, right? That gets too complicated. But if they have light projects in their area and they're using our templates and our processes, yes, I love that. I did a practicum where I would take people from within the business and skill them up with a real project. And because I want that. I want more advocates across the organization doing those types of projects.
So is it, I think it's important to let people know that PMO actually can interact with project managers,
Hmm.
program managers,
Hmm.
portfolio managers as well, because actually
Hmm.
PMO is there to, you know, not only provide services to all of these roles, but also sort of to, I would say, govern. I would say oversee the entire profession, because all of these roles are in the same profession at the end. We all belong to project management at the end, whether it's program
Right.
management, portfolio, right?
Right. Right. Absolutely. Now, I mean, I've been in PMOs, EPMOs, where, right, every organization is different. You're like, well, that might be a
Right.
little strange, but I've seen where I've had director level portfolio managers who did and didn't have direct reports. I've seen I've seen a whole bunch of different flavors of things, but to me, we're all working towards the same goal. It just depends on the complexity of what we're doing. And so, yes, to me, we all are one in that regard. And you know, it's and especially when it comes to portfolio management, if organizations are working at that level, we all need to be rowing in the same direction to make sure that we're hitting those strategic goals and delivering the value within the portfolio. Or if not, right here again, why do we have that portfolio?
Right. Um, so if we want to shift a little bit, change the topic to certifications, okay? I think a year and a half ago, probably something like this, PMI launched the PMOCP, then renamed it to PMI PMOCP, all right, certified professional. And even, there is the standard. If you can show it again to the audience, if you want.
Let me be Vanna White here. Here you go.
Exactly, the practice guide, the PMO practice guide. I personally have read, all of it. Especially when I was preparing for the free training we delivered. Um, Now, first of all, is it worth it to take the certification, Christine? I know you're on
Well,
the path. You're on the way.
I haven't taken it yet. Ask me when I take it. Um, in America, if America comes after me, you're going down with me. I mean, we're going down together. So yes, if anybody has looked at my profile or my website, I have a lot of certifications. I also require my PMs to get their PMP because I feel like as a profession, those things are baselines. And so if you're leading a PMO, why not? Why not? I mean, it's a couple months of your time and your investment. Obviously, there's a monetary element of it as well. But I mean, I think it's the baseline. And I mean, when I stood up my last team, I said everybody is getting the PMP.
Hmm.
Not so I can regurgitate the PMBOK, but I needed a baseline to be able to build from. From there, then you get an agile cert, and then we continued to evolve. But I mean, I'm a big believer in certifications because no one is ever going to do it verbatim how it is in whatever certification or whatever it is that you're learning. Even with my students, I'm like, I'm going to teach you the science, but that's not how it's always going to show up in reality. But you need the baseline.
Okay, when you say that, okay, yes, you have a lot of certifications, and you're encouraging your team members to take the certification. Why? Why, Christine?
Well, I required it.
Yeah, yeah,
So
but why?
I know. And here's my philosophy on it. And at the time I gave my team 6 months to do it. And so I changed the job description to show it as required. Because for me, and it's not like I'm scary in that regard, but I needed to know that every single person on my team understood the basics.
Hmm.
Because if you don't understand the basics, and I always tell my mentees, when you have enough time to sit and you meet the quals to be able to sit for the certification, sit for it. When I took my PMP a very long time ago, I didn't have a ton of bad habits because, right, we all have bad habits. We learn how we learn from our environments in the organization. So when I got into consulting, I sat for my PMP and it was still rough, like, right, because we're not seeing real time in our environments what we're reading about in these textbooks a lot of times. And so, but I needed my teams to have a baseline. That was the floor. And I always said, as a team, we're going to walk and talk and act like an EPMO. And that was the first thing. We had to have that. That went back to what I mentioned earlier with skilling up my team. And that is one of the first things I did.
So certifications, because to prepare for certification, you have someone has got to read the book or undertake a training. So let's say certifications make people speak the same language, at least understand what that terminology means, what that tool means, what that technique means, and even have some fundamental understanding how are things set or set up. Okay. And this is probably one of the reasons why you wanted your team members to get the PMP. But then you have a PGMP, PFMP. Now you're preparing for your PMO. Is that a step forward, backward? How would you categorize that?
Well, here's the story. The PGMP came because I created a role that was a program manager role. And in the US, for instance, when I got my PFMP, I was 507th or something. And so I know program is obviously a lot higher of a number, especially here in the US, but I required the program manager to sit for the certification. That was a requirement for the role. I've been around long enough. I'm sure you've seen it. Too many times in organizations, we'll throw around one of the 3 Ps. Now you add product, now you have 4 Ps. But people will, especially in healthcare, they would call them programs. Usually those were service lines. They were not what we would call programs. And there was too many things bouncing around. I'm like, no, we're going to level set on what the standard says. So then we can modify it to our organization. So that's how I originally got my program. And I did my program and my portfolio with, 6 months. So I literally passed the program and then started right into the portfolio because I had pivoted my leadership team into being portfolio managers. So my managers became portfolio managers. And I'm like, well, guess I have to go get this one too. And so I did that all within 6 months.
Now, soon we will start taking questions from the audience. I see some well-structured questions here. But before that, I have 1 or 2 questions maybe left. What about AI? Does PMO use AI to deliver the value they're supposed to deliver? And if yes, how? Well, this is the fashionable word, the trendy word now. And actually, it's a reality, to be honest.
Yeah. I'm not at the point of being afraid of AI. Once we start flexing into like the Matrix or something like Terminator, then I'm going to get freaked out. But the whole notion of us utilizing AI, and a lot of times PPM tools will have AI built in. Why would we not leverage that? Now, we have to remember it hallucinates. There's things I'm like, why do you say that? Stop saying that. But for instance, if you have Zoom, it's going to transcribe your entire meeting. Why would you not want to leverage that as a tool to help you? That's going to cut down on your meeting minute time.
Yeah.
Right? Clean it up, stick it into a format and send it out. And I mean, to me, it's work smarter, not harder, because if we can offset some of these admin components, you have more time to focus on skilling up and then working on being a strategic partner to the organization.
Okay. And looking forward, look into the future for the next 5 years, maybe. I would ask you this question. It's more of a general question, but you could narrow your answer down to PMO if you want. How do you see the future of the profession, like the project management profession, the role of the PMO, with all this whatever is going on in the world, technologically, geopolitically, even the influence of social media, because that influence a lot the way how people see project management or behave as project managers. Project management, I would say, is not the same as it was 20 years ago or even
Hmm.
just 10 years ago. I've
Hmm.
been there, I've been practicing this, and I know that many new trends, new habits, new ways
Hmm.
of. Let me tell you this, Christine. I'm working on a project on developing a digital solution for project managers, which I'm trying to put all the best theories and practices in there to help project managers excel at their projects. But you know what my team is saying all the time? No, Ahmed, please enough putting things from the book. Let's put AI in there because I don't want to read the book. I just need a tool that I'll tell it. I have this new project or new initiative. Please tell me how to do it. Create all the stuff for me. Create the project charter. Create this for me. Create that for me. Do this for me. And as a project manager, I'll be just checking if the AI did it right, and that's it. Then I'll just send it to my sponsor, to my customer, etc. So, taking all of this into consideration, how do you see the future of the profession?
Yeah, I like this question a lot. Um, two things. One, if you were just pushing the button and thinking AI is going to do it all for you, I think that is a big misconception.
Hmm.
Have you not? I think I just saw PMI just had some swag post on LinkedIn yesterday. The cat herder phrase. I'm like, that's what we do. That's not going to go away. We're dealing with people. AI is not going to be able to replicate that yet. And so, we're dealing with the politics, we're navigating people saying things, but they're not saying things. All the
Hmm.
things that we're dealing with, that to me is not going to go away. But where I see this profession heading is one, I love this profession. And, I think we have such an amazing gift that we bring to organizations, but we have to bring it. And I mean, we have to elevate because I can't tell you how many PMO leaders that I talk to on a daily basis where they've been dissolved. Their company just got rid of them. And you know what's going to happen? They're going to swing back in a couple of years and say, oh, we need a group to execute on our projects and tell us if we have capacity. And so first off, we have to stop that cycle. And that is not just a PMO leader's responsibility, that's all of ours. You're in a
Right.
fishbowl, you have to elevate, you have to speak in language that executives understand. And I mean, I teach all this in my program, but also, you know, I just went out and created GPTs for my PMO leaders, right? We can utilize these tools to help us to free up the time to you almost have to think like an operator. And that to me is how we're going to continue to elevate. And I don't feel like we're going anywhere. And I've talked to some companies that are thinking that they're going to completely replace PMs, and I just was like, that's not going to happen.
No, we're not going anywhere. You confirm that, Christine. We're not going
I
anywhere.
said that. Yes, we're good.
So the world still needs us as project managers to,
Yes.
yeah, let's
Yes.
make that
Yes.
sounds good. If you don't mind, I'll put a couple of questions on the screen. I'll let you read the question. Let me first of all remove this banner. Okay, so we get our names and headlines back. And then, let me start with this first question. I cannot see the name, but the question, is quite interesting. So I put on the screen for you to read and then to answer, if you don't mind. Here it is on the screen, Christine.
I I like that we picked a really long one for the first one. So I am, if anyone who's done a disc, I'm a DC. Like I have to think about these things. So my conscientious is going to come out while I read this. Okay.
Right.
You know, I think this kind of goes back to a lot of what we've been talking about.
Yeah.
Organizations do not, they don't, and I don't want to make it sound like executives are ignorant, by no means when I say this, but if they've not been around a mature PMO, what would make us think that they're going to know any different? Like we have to show them. We have to show them what we are capable of doing.
Hmm.
And so I think some of it is our own self created sort of realities that we have to navigate. And so if you're showing up, let's say to governance, and you're like, I don't know, we have 20% capacity, and, Bob might have availability in June, and, right? Like, they're going to be like, so what? What does that even mean? Right? And they're not going to understand that. So I think we have to elevate. And to me, a mature PMO, you're about 2 years ahead of the organization. So if you work on you, yes, you can tinker with these things. And yes, the books are going to help you. It's going to help you solidify sort of best practice. But you may have to tinker with it when you're in your organization. So, if you know best practice, obviously sit for the exam, understand what it's telling you, find other people in the industry that have lived this. For me, governance, I just have to take a deep breath, because governance is so just difficult for every single organization, because you're holding people accountable. Some people may not like that. They have agendas. Well, that's my project. Why would you not approve it? You get all of this with it. And so, as much as you can make data driven decisions, I also don't want the PMO in the business of being the ones that are like, yes, no, yeah, right? You're a service. You're not the gatekeeper. That's another thing that we get ourselves into, is we're viewed as the no police.
Somehow, yeah, sometimes. That's correct.
Yeah.
Speaking of the maturity of the PMO, there is a question from Vivian. If you don't mind, I put on screen as well. It's also quite, no, it's not that long, but she says that, yeah, in her experience, it's not just about the maturity of the PMO leader. It depends on the maturity of the organization. So organizational culture is also an important factor. So we need to evaluate using the tools we have, what the organization needs, considering its maturity, culture, and leadership style.
Yeah.
So
I that is so true. And if I could turn the screen over here, right? I
yeah.
literally have a diagram that I talk about these broken systems that we swim in, because organizations do not understand true project portfolio management. So yes, they may have a low level of maturity just across the board. They may not understand lean. I feel like as PMOs, we need to understand lean management. We also need to understand organizational change management. And so you may be bumping up against a lot of, right, the bag that the organization has. This is where I mentioned you've got to kind of play the hand that you were given, and then what I call is like drop these little seeds of maturity as you go. I feel a mature PMO is 2 years ahead of the organization. And so, what does that mean? I like to give this example. When I was an ePMO leader and we were ready for portfolio management, I was all like, well, we talk about portfolios. You have the strategic stuff, then at the bottom, your BAU, your keep the lights on, your run the business. And then you have all that kind of stuff in the middle. And it all works together to achieve the strategic, you know, whatever the roadmap is, the goals, whatever it is. And I was told by one of our leaders, like, Christine, no one's ever going to say portfolio. And I was like, okay. So I was like, what other word works? I started calling them containers. 2 years, 2 years. I was sitting in a meeting. I was just listening in, and that same leader said container. And I was like, oh my God, she said container. She said the word, it resonated. And so you have to, right? You're gonna have to pivot. You're gonna My daughter plays flag football. And so they call it juking, right? You have to be able to turn and to pivot. And yes, it's never going to be perfect. It's going to take you as a project professional, as a PMO leader, to really be able to step up your game to be able to help be the change agents for the organization.
Right, right. Good one. There is this thought from, I think, Sultan. I like this. Theoretically correct PMO may have excellent policies, refined templates, attractive dashboards, but the PMO that leaders trust is the one that simplifies complexity, tells the truth clearly, offers practical options, responds quickly during crises. Trust is not built through templates; it's built through the ability to support leadership in different moments when decisions are costly and time is limited. So do you agree, Christine?
Oh, yes. Yeah. That, what you mentioned in the beginning, right? That's all the science side of things. I mean,
Right.
look, I will geek out on some lovely dashboards with you all day long, right? We keep that in the family. But it's, you need to have those things because we have to have them. We don't, here again, I say you don't have to boil the ocean. You do what you need to do to show the value, but you have to solve a, a pain for the organization. You have to make their lives easier. You have to be that thought partner. And, if you're with an organization, kind of similar to the last question, there you have a low maturity with the, let's say, the executive suite, start asking the questions. I like to say, I wonder if, when they're like, ooh, I want this new shiny project over here. Oh, well, I wonder what our break even point would be for that project. When do you expect to see the return on your investment? When's the payback period, right? You start having those conversations and they're like, oh, I've not thought about that, right? So you're showing up, you're here to make the lives of the executives easier, which means sometimes and I've seen this, people are like, I should not have to like manage my sponsor. If you need things from your sponsor, you are going to have to manage or lead up. I've heard that topic come around lately too. Lead up. I love it.
Right, to lead up like that. Yeah, Daniel, my friend here says we're not going anywhere. So yeah, Daniel already, Christine said that we're not going anywhere. Actually, no, really. Honestly, we're just 3 minutes to finish, but the project management profession, I consider myself lucky, Christine, to be in this profession. You see, I originally studied accounting at the university. Okay,
Oh.
but yeah, but I never worked, not for a single second in accounting. So I immediately after university joined IBM and I studied in project management. And honestly, I discovered a whole, interesting world, where everything around us could be a project. When
Yeah.
there is a change, when there is an innovation, when there is a creation, when there is, an improvement,
Hmm.
all of that is a project. So
Yeah.
we need to make sure that those projects become a success and deliver the value that is expected being delivered to the stakeholders or the sponsors or the customers. So probably I'll let you have the last word, the final word here in this podcast with the audience. What would you like to tell your audience? We can it's a free moment for you, free space. Say whatever you want, whether it's related to the topic or to anything else. It's really up to you.
Yeah. Yeah. I would have to agree. I sort of fell into this profession like most of us. And I think it's an amazing profession. We will never be bored ever. Yes, it has trials and tribulations. We're going to get knocked around. That's just sort of the nature of the beast with what we do. But I know a lot of you, especially PMO leaders, have not fully seen what a mature PMO can do. And I assure you that it can happen. And celebrate your wins throughout the journey. as you continue to elevate and lead your organizations into a whole other realm that they've never even thought was possible. And, when I go back many years ago and my leader challenged me and he's like, I want you to apply for PMI's PMO of the year. And I laughed and I was like, that's not going to happen. We're not going to be able to do it. And, it's to then see what teams are capable of doing and the value that you provide to the organizations. Don't ever dismiss that, because we are value add as a profession. And I think as long as we continue to elevate our skills and we become strategic partners to our executives, we're not going anywhere.
Right. Thank you so much, Christine. Really
Thank
appreciate
you.
it. Thank you so much for being with us. Thank you, the audience, everyone who really
Yes.
watched us and contributed with their questions. We will be meeting again in other podcasts with other active project management professionals. Until then, stay safe. Thank you so much, Christine. So
Thank you.
live